It's my pleasure to introduce Joanna Zlenko, founder and CEO of the Closet Trading Company. Joanna has grown the Closet Trading Company into a nationally recognized luxury resale brand with 8 locations and a successful franchise program. She is committed to redefining the resale experience, promoting sustainability, and empowering others to build successful businesses. Please join me in welcoming Joanna, and
Right,
I'll turn things over to you.
thank you. Thank you so much, Caroline, and to the Simple Consign team for having me. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. It's really a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you tuning in. And I'm looking forward to sharing what I can from my 22 years of experience as a resale business owner, with the goal of equipping you with some real life, practical, hands-on advice and resources as you consider or navigate your own path in the resale business. I'll start by giving you a little bit of background on me and on my business. It's called the Closet Trading Company, or TCTC. And my love for resale began way before TCTC as a kid. I grew up in San Francisco, which was a mecca for secondhand shopping and thrift stores, even in the 90s. And my grandma and I would spend hours perusing thrift stores and charity shops. And this passion continued into high school. And my friends and I would dig through Goodwill and Salvation Army for unique vintage clothing and old records. So in 2003, I moved to Santa Barbara, California to attend college. And my first week there, I found a part-time job, very much in line with what I was interested in, which was helping to open a small vintage shop in a very modest 400 square foot office space. It was nestled in a little alley behind McDonald's. The shop was originally called The Closet. And within a few months of opening the store, my boss, the original owner, she had to relocate out of state and had to close up shop. And I was devastated because I truly had fallen in love with this business and its potential. And my grandma actually gave me the advice to see if I could take over the business instead of it just getting shut down. And the rest is history. Here we are. It turns out that there was a real demand in the market for this kind of business. There really wasn't anything like it happening in Santa Barbara at the time. And in the years since, we've expanded, renovated, relocated, and opened multiple stores through Central and Southern California, including our now much larger flagship location in downtown Santa Barbara. Our team has worked really hard to bring customers and consignors a memorable resale experience. And with their support, we've celebrated some exciting milestones, like in 2016, when we opened our store at the Village at Topanga and Woodland Hills and became the first secondhand store allowed in any major shopping center worldwide, in this particular case, a Westfield shopping center, demonstrating that the secondhand industry can be seen as a mainstream offering, even in premium centers with institutional landlords. Building on the momentum, we launched our franchise program, inviting new partners to share in our success. And through this initiative, we grew our presence to Northern California and South Florida. Today, with 8 stores operating across California and Florida, over 100,000 customers and consignors served, 25 million generated in revenue, and another 12 stores slated to open by year-end 2026, we are more inspired than ever about the future of the resale business. I'd love to invite you to take a quick look inside one of our boutiques. This is our Woodland Hills location, and then we'll jump right into the rest of the presentation. So as far as the topics that we will be exploring today, here is an overview of the presentation. I'll preface this by saying that I highly recommend putting together a business plan before you invest in your new venture. There is already a ton of content out there on writing business plans, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on like the mechanics of writing a plan. Instead, I'll really focus in a more in-depth look at the elements of an actionable plan that I think are the most critical to consider for anyone looking to go into the resale business. So we'll start with determining your reason for being a business, your mission and values, what you do in your business and why you do it. Answering these big questions at the onset will guide you in your decision making, help you to connect authentically with customers, to stand out from competitors, and to motivate your employees. By way of example, here are our mission and values at TCTC. So I'll kind of go through each one to give you an example of how you might consider putting together your mission and values in your own business plan in a way that resonates with you. Our mission and values are the heart of everything we do at TCTC. They drive our decisions, motivate our growth, shape the experience we aim to deliver for both our customers and franchise partners. So while your mission and values may be different, I think it's still useful to look at a concrete example. So first and foremost, we're committed to sustainability. It's a mission that resonates deeply with today's consumers, particularly as more people prioritize ethical and sustainable choices. Equally important to us is inclusivity, which of course has many meanings. We're really looking at how fashion should feel welcoming and accessible, and that's exactly what we strive to deliver. From a curated selection of styles to a boutique experience, we really want to create an environment and experience where we can ensure that customers of all backgrounds and walks of life feel at home in our stores. We also hold customer satisfaction as a core value. Our boutique experience is designed to go beyond just selling. It's about building connections, offering personalized service, and creating lasting relationships. We hope that this commitment is what keeps our customers coming back and inspires loyalty to the brand. Finally, and perhaps most passionately, we believe in empowering women. From our customers to our employees and franchise partners, we're dedicated to celebrating and supporting women in every role. This commitment is woven into the fabric of our business, shaping our programs and initiatives that encourage and elevate women entrepreneurs. Together, these values represent the foundation of our operations and the vision we have for the future. That being said, I should mention that we've reworked and revised the mission and values as we've evolved over time. So you can just come up with something that feels meaningful and important to you today, knowing that it's very likely to change as your business grows and changes. So next, as you start looking at where physically your store is going to be located, you'll have some really important decisions to make around site selection, assuming you plan to have a brick and mortar storefront. Site selection is critical to the success of the venture and can be one of the most intimidating parts of starting a new resale business. My recommendation is to keep occupancy costs. So that's your rent and utilities, basically what it takes to physically be in your space, at approximately 10% of your projected sales at maturity. So if you think that once you've ramped up your store, it's going to do $500,000 a year in sales, you're going to want to keep your occupancy costs at around $50,000 a year. You want to get the highest traffic and visibility location you can afford. My experience has been that traffic trumps size or square footage in most cases. So a smaller space in a more visible location generally will be more successful than a larger space in a less visible location. Look for something that can be seen by as many people as possible who are driving or walking by. Visit the location at different times of day and different days of the week to observe traffic patterns. So, like some places seem really busy during a lunch rush at noon on a Tuesday, but they're actually completely dead on weekends. So you'll want to consider the impact on your business. And lastly, highly recommend getting an attorney who specializes in commercial tenant representation to review your lease. I know it feels like a big expenditure early on in the process, but it's so worthwhile. It's my experience has been that it's worth the expense many times over to negotiate the most advantageous terms possible and to avoid costly repairs and disturbances down the line. I'll tell you a story about a very costly mistake I made in selecting a store location. This was maybe 17, 18 years ago, and we had the opportunity to move our original tiny Santa Barbara store to a much larger and more prominent location downtown. It was in the midst of the Great Recession, and businesses were closing left and right. So landlords who wouldn't give us the time of day before were open to leasing to secondhand independent businesses like mine all of a sudden. So we had the opportunity to get this killer location. It was next to the Apple store. It was right on the main drag, and we had no outside funding. So we were bootstrapping the whole build out. It was way out of our budget at the time, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. And I mean, really, we spent basically every dollar in the bank account to move it forward, ran up every credit card, borrowed from family and friends, and in 2009, we opened our doors, this beautiful new store with like $100 left in the bank account. And fast forward 1 week later, and the air conditioning stopped working completely in the middle of summer. Lo and behold, we needed to replace the $20,000 commercial air conditioning unit. And because I had not engaged an appropriately trained attorney to review the lease, I had no protection and no recourse. It was a very scary time. We barely pulled through, but I learned my lesson, and I would never sign another lease without engaging appropriate legal expertise. And I do see the question in the chat, do you recommend an attorney over a commercial real estate agent and broker? So I recommend both. The commercial agent is definitely useful in helping to find the right location. But the attorney is going to be the one to be best equipped to negotiate the lease and look out for potential pitfalls down the line. I always keep in mind that the agent is incentivized by the total spend on your lease. So the more you spend, the higher the agent's commission. They're really not going to be affected by what happens after you sign the lease. So that's where the attorney comes in. Okay, let's see. So moving on from site selection, I'm going to talk a little bit about reputation and how much it matters specifically in the resale business. It's such an important part of resilience in any economic conditions, and the root of reputation is running your business with integrity and care. So giving customers a reason to love their experience and shout it from the rooftops, there's no more effective form of marketing your new venture. So encouraging them to share their great experience by leaving reviews and through referral programs. Research shows that consumers trust peer reviews more than any other kind of marketing, hands down. So the more you invest in this process, the faster your business will grow. Conversely, negative reviews are really hard to shake. They can stick for years and years and years online and have long-lasting negative effects on the business. So my experience has been that as business owners, we have to be really pragmatic in resolving customer conflicts whenever possible, and whether or not the customer is quote unquote right. So next, we're going to look at building a team. Again, this really depends on what kind of business you are looking to open. If it's online, you're going to have different requirements. I'm really looking at it from a brick and mortar perspective. So assuming you're planning to have a physical storefront and you're determining your staffing needs, I would start by determining your hours of operation and how many hours you personally plan to work in your business, and then hire for the remaining hours. Use as little labor as you possibly can until your business has become profitable. I've made this mistake where we've over hired thinking we needed to build out a team right from the beginning of a new store opening. And your burn rate every month becomes so high covering all this payroll that you just don't need yet. So start as lean as you can and then add labor as you really need it. If you can, plan to spend the maximum amount of time that you possibly can allocate in your business the first 12 to 18 months. Managing the store directly gives the owner maximum control over the store performance and keeps payroll to a minimum, making for the shortest ramp-up period and the fastest return on investment. As far as hiring practices in the process of building a team, if you decide you need employees, very similar to the recommendation on the attorney for reviewing a lease, I would recommend an HR pro to create a compliant and effective recruitment plan. Most payroll providers offer this service, or you can go on platforms like Upwork to hire freelance HR specialists. This is another area where working with experts at the onset is worth every penny. So now we're going to look at actually setting up your physical storefront. So there's the front of house and the back of house, of course. The front of house is setting the stage for success in your store. Showcase your most desirable products in the front of the store where they can be seen from the entryway. Keep the store neat and clean. You're always working against a negative preconception of secondhand stores. So you need to overcome that objective with your customers proactively. You want to keep this in mind across all senses. So the store needs to smell good, look good, sound good. There is a long time negative connotation around secondhand and thrift. So we're always really trying to work to create a new understanding of the industry. And due to the nature of the business and so many different products, resale stores have a tendency to look cluttered and messy very quickly. So keeping up with store housekeeping, I feel, is really a must in our business. The back of the house. So in the back of the house, if you plan to have consigners especially, store consigned items securely and keep everything neatly organized. As consignment store owners, we are responsible for consigners' items while they are with us in the store, and must treat them with the utmost care. This is where the whole reputation matters thing really comes in. Ensure that both the office and storage areas are well organized, which streamlines the drop off and pickup processes and enhances the customer experience. So as you figure out what your store is going to look like, you really want to identify your target audience, figuring out who your target customer is and what they want to buy and see. Clearly defining this in your business from the onset. Having the North Star customer in mind helps to guide so many decisions, like how you spend your marketing dollars, what kind of inventory to bring in, how to merchandise your store, how to communicate with your customers and consigners. So I highly recommend giving this a lot of thought and defining the customer before you ever open your doors, or as early on as you can in your process. Just like core mission and values, your target customer avatar may change over time, but it's really useful to start your business with your eye on the prize by defining your ideal so you can begin fostering more authentic and mutually beneficial relationships with your customers. It also helps your ideal customer to differentiate you from your competitors. Lastly, as we all know, marketing can be really expensive. So, hyper focusing your spend on areas that are most likely to connect with your particular target customer will increase your return on investment and your conversion. For example, say you decide to allocate some marketing spend to pay an influencer to promote your store on her social media channels. Determining important details about your core customers, such as, does your target customer have children? What's her age range, her income, her interests, will be critical in aligning with the right influencer that your target customer will actually trust and whose advice you will follow. So, at TCTC, our primary target customer, our customer avatar, we call her Ashley. Ashley is an elder millennial, and the visual attributes of the TCTC brand aesthetic are targeted to her preferences. This avatar is a mom of young children, so she's super busy. Her time is her most valuable asset. we're always thinking about how to better cater to Ashley's needs. For example, we introduced our curbside drop-off service where we meet consigners at their car with a cart and unload their items for them. This way, Ashley doesn't even have to get out of the car to consign with us, which is a huge time saver, especially if she has kids with her. Ashley also may not have time to browse, so our stores are organized to highlight her favorite brands and categories in easy to spot sections. For example, an Ashley favorite, athleisure, has its own rack because it's a staple for this customer and she's not going to go hunting for it. We keep Ashley top of mind in every major decision in our brand because if it doesn't make sense for her, it doesn't make sense for us. Once you've defined your target customer, um, build your ideal inventory selection around her needs and wants. Decide which brands, categories, and price points you will carry and seek out. Determine how much of your store you will allocate to these various product lines. Your product mix will inevitably shift as you begin operating your store and responding to customer feedback, but having a strategic and mindful approach from the start will accelerate the growth of the business. It's also easy to fall into thinking that if you're taking items in on a consignment basis, it doesn't matter all that much if something doesn't sell because you didn't pay for it outright. The truth is that every item you take in has a cost associated with it, even if it's on consignment. When you consider how many times each item is touched during its time in your store, from intake to sorting to entering to tagging to hanging to pulling off unsold items off the floor, and you add up all of those touch points, you can see that the labor involved in processing every single piece in the store really adds up to a lot of time spent. So when an item doesn't sell, even if it was consigned, it actually does cost you the time value of money. Keeping a clear and concise focus in selecting products is it's really critical to the bottom line. So as far as an example, this is the way we define our core inventory selection at TCTC. We offer a curated selection of brands ranging from contemporary bridge to luxury, with most items originally retailing at $100 or more. Our main focus is on current and modern trends, typically featuring brands manufactured in the last 2 years. And when evaluating incoming inventory, we specifically consider our primary customer persona, Ashley. Once you've defined your customer and your inventory, you need to decide how you plan to acquire that inventory. Inventory acquisition methods for secondhand stores vary, but for the most part, they fall into two buckets: buying outright or consignment. There are benefits and drawbacks to each method. You can also offer both options to your customers, as we do in our stores. So first, let's take a look at buying outright. The pros are that sellers are generally open to accepting a lower amount for their items when they're paid up front and don't have to wait for the items to sell. So there's an opportunity for higher margins. You also have full agency to discount or seasonally cycle the products as you see fit since you own them. The cons are the downside is if an item doesn't sell, the store absorbs the loss, and the upfront capital required can be daunting for a new business owner. Um, Another channel through which you can buy outright is buying items for store credit or trade instead of cash. The benefit of trade is that no cash leaves the store and a purchase is guaranteed. The downside is that if the item doesn't sell, the business still absorbs a loss, just like cash buyouts. There are also storage fees to consider if the buy outright model, if you don't have sufficient storage in your store. So alternatively, there's the consignment model. The key benefit of consignment is that it's cash flow positive and it inherently has a lower risk. So you don't pay the consignor until the item actually sells. And if an item doesn't sell, the store doesn't directly pay for that item. The lower upfront cost can lower the barrier to entry for new store owners and allow you to test out more diverse products as you work through defining your best-selling inventory. The downside is that the store usually earns lower margins compared to buying outright, and the tracking and inventory management required with consignment is significantly more labor intensive. You also have less control over the inventory, so you may not be able to discount an item without checking with a consignor, for example. Nevertheless, in my opinion, for a new store starting out, consignment is the more economical and strategic approach from both an inventory acquisition and cash flow standpoint. So you've decided how you're going to acquire inventory. Now, how are you going to process it? How will you keep track of your inventory, customers, consigners, transactions? How will you determine pricing and authenticity of goods? How will you accept various payment methods, list items to sell online, run reports for bookkeeping and analysis? Technology is an unavoidable part of running a business today. I honestly wouldn't even consider moving forward in a business in 2025 without implementing a technology solution for inventory management and customer management at the very least. Realistically, it's really helpful to use a suite of tools and products to perform all the necessary functions. We use Simple Consign for most of these functions, and having tried various other resale consignment softwares over the years, my opinion is that it really is the best on the market today. And in conjunction with Simple Consign, we use tools for authentication, project management, bookkeeping, and clienteling. So towards the end of the presentation, we'll share a list of some of the ones that work really well for us at TCTC, and you can feel free to screenshot that. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about setting your KPIs. So as you get ready to open your business, you need to have a plan for what metrics will indicate success in your business and how you will recognize opportunities for improvements and track trends. These metrics, called key performance indicators or KPIs, are the scorecard for your business. Without tracking, it's really difficult to know what to improve. So make a list of your KPIs and then decide which ones you'll track on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, and incorporate this tracking into your routine. So I'll go through some of the ones that we measure. These are some of our KPIs, and they're really pretty universal for pretty much all retail across segments. So first, new versus returning customers tells us how well our new customer acquisition and retention marketing efforts are performing. So if we're not getting enough new customers, then we need to focus on customer acquisition marketing in order to achieve that specific goal, which really helps us decide where to allocate marketing spend. Customer acquisition cost is just your total marketing cost divided by the number of new customers you have. The lower the number, the more efficient your marketing spend is. Inventory velocity tells you how long it takes items to sell in your store on average. The faster items sell through, the more items you can sell in a given period. Purchase rate is simply what percentage of people who walked into your store actually bought something. Low percentage might mean that the sales team needs more training or that your product mix is not connecting with your target customer. Average ticket and UPT can tell you generally about the effectiveness of the sales team. And then units sold speaks to product mix and curation. So merchandising adjustments can help increase this metric. For example, adding impulse items at checkout can be useful in improving your units sold KPI. As you launch your business, getting out there and making the store known in the community is the most cost-effective way to market your business. Participating in local events, having a booth at farmers market, setting up a table at a local salon or Pilates studio, hosting workshops, attending and hosting networking opportunities not only gets the word out, but also establishes you and your business as trusted members of the community. One of the most fun parts of establishing a new brand, in my opinion, is creating its identity. So your brand identity comprise basically of three parts: brand voice, brand visuals, and brand attributes. Your voice is how you communicate on behalf of your brand. For example, like what verbiage you use in Instagram captions. Is your brand sassy and irreverent, or is it chic and sophisticated? It's totally up to you to decide what your target customer will connect with. Your visual guidelines help to maintain consistency across channels. So, determining a color palette, a font or set of fonts, and a style of imagery will create a recognizable and cohesive aesthetic. And lastly, your brand attributes are what your brand is known for. So, Volvo cars are known for safety and reliability. Patagonia is known for rugged sustainability. What will your store be known for? Defining all of this up front helps to really differentiate you from competitors and help customers to recognize your value. Once you've created your brand identity, you're ready to start promoting your store through email marketing and social media. To be most effective, email marketing should be thoughtfully designed to engage both shoppers and sellers. Focusing on shoppers, your emails can turn casual browsers into loyal customers. Focusing on sellers, you really want to keep it simple and straightforward, having targeted to campaigns to reconnect and maintain relationships. How to leverage social media. This could be a whole webinar in and of itself. So I'll just try to summarize the key strategies that we found to be the most effective. Tailor social media strategies to align with your particular brand identity and audience, ensuring consistent messaging and higher engagement. Authentic brand images build customer trust and loyalty. Um, we made this mistake for a very, very long time, and I wish I'd known this much earlier on. Stock photos and other generic content, they just don't connect with customers in the same way as real photos of your store, your customers, your products. Familiarize yourself with Meta. YouTube University is a great resource so that you can strategically design ad campaigns targeting the right customers. Build local partnerships with businesses and influencers on social media, and focus more on engagement than on vanity metrics like follower count when selecting partners. So this might mean selecting an influencer with a smaller following, but you see that her following is really, really engaged with her. That's generally going to be a better return on investment for you than just picking the one with the biggest following you can afford. Engage with your audience by liking and commenting on their content to build community and increase reach. So outside of your storefront, another way to generate sales is to sell online, of course. We utilize Simple Consign's Shopify integration. We found it to be the most user-friendly and efficient way to get started selling on your own site. We have tried others before, but this has made the most sense for us. And you can also cross-list to various marketplaces and platforms to get the maximum visibility for your products. Selling online expands market reach and connects physical and online channels through services like in-store pickups. There's a ton of blue sky here, and it can be very cost effective, but it takes time to get the hang of it. So I would just say don't get discouraged if your online sales lag behind your in-store sales. Consistency is key, and as is promoting the products that you have on your website, on socials, and email. Here is an example of our site, which uses the Shopify Simple Consign integration. This platform provides a familiar and comfortable experience for existing customers while also attracting new shoppers. All right, as promised, here are some of our most used tools at TCTC. So aside from Simple Consign and Shopify, which I already mentioned, we use Monday.com for all of our project and task management, Klaviyo for our email marketing, Canva for all of our graphic design, Entropy, amongst a couple of other authentication services to authenticate our designer goods. And I also can't recommend highly enough the book Traction by Gino Wickman for just general small business strategy, planning, discipline. I think it's a great read for anyone going into any kind of business. Let's see, I see a question in the chat. Best way to get consigners. I think the best way to get consigners is to hold offsite events before you open your store. So holding consignment events at local churches, schools. We did one at a pickleball club last weekend, at Pilates studios, at yoga studios, at salons. So working with those local businesses, setting up a table there, offering their customers and clients, refreshments and gift cards in exchange for the opportunity to invite consigners to bring in their things. So getting out in the community and sourcing outside of your store before you open it, I think is the best way to get started. Once your store is open, I'd say the best way to get some consigners is to do similar events, but in your physical space. You can invite your local chamber of commerce, your local women's business association, your local women's, or if you're women's clothing, realtor association to come in and offer them incentives like extra percentages on their consignment to bring in their items. Okay, let's see. So I'm just going to wrap up with kind of the 10 tips that I wish that I had known before I started my business, and I hope that you find them useful as well. So first, I wish I'd started tracking and identifying my KPIs much, much earlier on. They're so valuable. They really help you ramp up your business faster. And I would just implement from day one, knowing your numbers and tracking them. As I said, having an appropriate attorney who specializes in tenant rep, review your leases before you sign them. Working with an HR professional and hiring your employees. Mistakes cost so much down the line. They're really easy to make. And unfortunately, not knowing all of the rules does not excuse us from following them. So hiring an appropriate expert, I think, is very well worth it. Also, unless you have an accounting background, I would work with a bookkeeper and accountant right from the beginning. Having enough capital on hand to cover 6 months of expenses before you start. I, read the statistic at some point that most stores actually go out of business because they run out of money before they become profitable. So it's not that the business wouldn't have been successful, it's that they just didn't have enough runway to get to profitability. So trying to set yourself up for success before you start, as far as capital, I really wish that I had known and understood that earlier on. As we mentioned earlier, selecting a space with the highest foot traffic and most visibility that you can afford. So sacrificing size for traffic. Hosting events to acquire inventory before you open. Once customers come into your store, it's hard to overcome a first impression. So you want their first impression to be of a really great full store, good inventory. I wish that we had used Simple Consign. It didn't exist even when I started, but I wish that we had found them much earlier on. You may not need all the capabilities right off the bat, but you'll need them as your business grows. And it's really hard to switch point of sale softwares down the line. So just getting set up with the most robust one at the beginning, I think really sets a business up for success. Make an avatar of your target customer or customers and revisit it relentlessly to make sure you're marketing to the right target customer. And understand your margins and adjust either your inventory costs or your general overhead accordingly as you go. So that pretty much wraps up. Let's see, I see another question in the chat. Is there an app for us to use to keep records on our customers that includes their size, shoe size, age group, or brands they love? There's an app called Client Book that does just that. I will say we used it for many years. I'm not sure if it's worth the cost. You can track a lot of that stuff in Simple Consign in the Notes app, and it's searchable. You can also track it like in a Google wish list and then use a texting app. So it does exist. It's called Client Book, but it's a bit costly. I see another question. Why did you decide to franchise versus license? It's a great question. Licensing and franchising are very closely related. And in some states like California, where I am, there is really a very blurry line between the two. So the advice that I got from the attorneys I worked with and other franchisor was to err on the side of caution and go with the most strictly regulated model, which is franchising, um, as opposed to licensing, which it it's just much harder to control and maintain um, the brand experience and the customer service experience in a licensing model. Someone is asking, can we get a recording? Yeah, Carolina, I believe so, right?
Yes, I will be emailing the recording to everyone.
Awesome. Let's see, any other questions today? On the topic of franchising, what are the main differences between opening a franchise versus my own store, trying to figure out what's best for me? Um, the main difference is, I mean, it really depends what kind of business you go into and what your goals are. So I would say that going into a franchise model, someone's already made a lot of the mistakes for you. So you're going into potentially a system where the kinks have been worked out. You're going to have, generally speaking, a smoother path to a successful business, a faster path. On the other hand, you have to be willing to work within a system. So if you really want to do everything your way and you feel like you want to kind of figure it all out on your own, franchising might not be best for you. You also really need to align with the values of the particular franchise you're getting into. So that's something to consider. Having been around through previous economic disruptions, do you have any advice for making it through the current conditions? Um, my experience has been that resale is quite resilient in different macroeconomic conditions, including recession. Um, More people tend to be open to shopping secondhand as economic conditions get a little bit choppier. So my advice would be to, I wouldn't back away from the resale business because of what's going on, but I would keep your business as lean as possible. Keep your labor down, work in your store as much as you can. Do not get into a lease that you can't afford. Really operate as lean as you possibly can. Let's see. What do you love the most about what you do? Oh gosh, there's a lot I love. So I've been working with my team. Some of them have been with me 17 years, 14 years, 13 years. I really love the collaborative aspect of what I do. Like we have meetings every day. We talk through all of our ideas and challenges. It just like it really lights me up to be able to um just workshop this stuff all the time to improve the business, to improve the customer experience, to improve the franchise experience, and to continue kind of building and evolving. Like that challenge is really what I love. We're in North Carolina. Do you know of any online Shopify consultants that can review our startup progress and offer recommendations? You know what? That is a good question, Heather. I don't know of any that are North Carolina based, but I did work with one on Upwork, and I'm happy to send over. If you wouldn't mind shooting me an email, my email is right here on the screen. I'm happy to send over their contact info. You mentioned tracking new versus returning consigners. Are you doing this in Simple Consign? So we are running the reports from Simple Consign. We're extracting the data there, and then we're doing the analysis separately. So every week in each of our stores, we keep a scorecard where we track new customers and returning customers. And then we put all of that into an Excel spreadsheet, and then we analyze the trends over time. Can you share more about your franchising program and a link? Yeah, absolutely. So the tctcfranchise.com on the screen is the franchise site. You can definitely check all of that out. And if you want to just talk more one-on-one, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to set up a time to chat more. Let's see. Anyone else here? All right.